Now that the 2017 F1 season is over, it's time to take a look at the top 10 most memorable moments of the season. Over the next 2 weeks, I'll be analysing each of these incidents in depth from a driver's perspective, so make sure you subscribe to be notified of more videos. If you're watching in the future, I'll have linked to the analysis videos in the description below. Now I just need to say that due to FOM copyrights, I can't show the footage in full speed, but in the analysis videos, I will go through the footage frame by frame. So let's get into my top 10 moments from the 2017 season. So coming in at number 10 was the fight between Vettel and Verstappen on lap 13 of the British Grand Prix. Vettel had caught Verstappen and got a good toe down the hanger straight. He then dummied to the inside of Verstappen and went again as they went into Stowe. As they came into the corner, Vettel was on the inside, tried to push Verstappen all the way to the outside of Stowe, but because of the bit of runoff there on the outside, some asphalt and some AstroTurf grass on the outside there, Verstappen was able to stay alongside on the run down to Vale. As they got on the brakes, as always, Verstappen was very late, was just a few inches ahead of Vettel and managed to push him wide in the left of Vale. Verstappen then kept his position going into the right and managed to stay in front of Vettel until the pit stops. Number 9 is Bottas' start in Austria. So Bottas qualified pole and made what looked like an incredible start. However, when you look at the slow motion replay, he was actually moving forwards before the red lights went out. The FIA actually allow a driver to move forward just slightly before the red lights go out. Now I know that sounds a little bit crazy because that seems like a jump start, but the way that the clutches work with the cars and to hold it on the biting point means that the FIA give a certain distance, and they don't tell you how much, but they give you a certain distance where you can creep forwards. Then when the red lights went out, Bottas was away and gone. It looked like Bottas made a false start, and in my opinion, he certainly did. He was just incredibly lucky that the red lights went out as he pulled away from the grid. And we're going to take a deeper look at this in my analysis video in a few days' time. At number 8, it's Daniel Ricciardo's 3-car overtake into turn 1 at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. He'd got a good toe along the Baku straight to get almost completely alongside Felipe Massa and Hülkenberg, but he was a long way behind Lance Stroll. And when they got on the brakes, as they got on the brakes, he simply had the confidence to brake later than all three of them. Now the Red Bull is very good on the brakes, but to have the confidence on that brake pedal like Daniel Ricciardo does is just simply amazing. He got on the brakes, went right up the inside of Lance Stroll, and that really helped him move on to victory at the Baku Grand Prix. Next up, it's the incident between Ocon and Perez at Spa. Now, throughout the season, there were many incidents between the Force India pairing. However, for me at Spa, it was probably the most dangerous. As the two drivers left La Source and headed down the hill, there was a Renault on the left and then Perez and then Ocon on the inside. They all gently got squeezed down and Ocon kept his foot in, fair enough for him. And Perez and him made contact and Ocon made contact with the wall at the very same time. They were incredibly lucky to get away with not having a huge monumental crash. Ocon made the move stick amazingly and went on to continue in the race until they came together again in much the same position. Number 6 of my top 10 moments was when Verstappen and Ricciardo came together in turn 2 at Hungary. Now, they both got a reasonable start, but at turn 1, Verstappen had to lift out the throttle because Raikkonen in front of him was a little bit slow. That then put him on the AstroTurf. He got a bad exit coming out of turn 1, and Ricciardo got a good exit and went to the right-hand side of Verstappen. Coming down the hill into turn 2, Ricciardo was slightly ahead, probably half a car's length ahead. Verstappen just got on the brakes a little bit too late with a car that's full of fuel. Tyres aren't quite up to temperature, and as he turned into turn 2, just got a little bit of push and slid into his teammate. That ended Ricciardo's race, but Verstappen managed to continue. In my opinion, it wasn't intentional from Verstappen. The two have a good relationship, and it was just unusual for Verstappen to make a mistake like this. It was enough to make Ricciardo obviously quite angry, and he called Verstappen a Sore loser. Ricciardo's had a season where he's yet again proved that he is one of the best overtakers on the grid. And for me, the best move that he did all year was on Raikkonen at Monza. He got a good toe, but was still at least 30 metres behind the Finn coming down into turn 1 after the long straight. Obviously the Red Bull's a fantastic car on the brakes, but to come from that far back is just amazing. Ricciardo has such a confidence on the brake pedal. He came from miles back, and I think Raikkonen would have looked in his mirror and didn't think that Ricciardo would have been a problem as they came into turn 1. The next thing is, Ricciardo was alongside him and took the position going into turn 1. For me to have that confidence on the brakes and the confidence in the other drivers that they're not going to turn into you is just incredible. So I've already analysed the incident between Vettel, Verstappen and Hamilton through the first complex of the Mexican Grand Prix. So I'll link to that in the description below. Both Vettel and Verstappen made a good start, and as they came into turn 1 they were alongside each other, with Vettel on the inside and Verstappen on the left, braking into the space to try and go around the outside of Vettel. As always, the Red Bull's good on the brakes and Verstappen's good on the brakes, so he managed to stay alongside Vettel as they came in towards the apex and hung the car around the outside. Yes, he went off the road just a little bit, but as he moved back across, he was on the inside for the left of turn 2. As they went into turn 2, he braked later than Vettel and managed to force Vettel wide. As this was all happening, Hamilton has made his way through turn 1 and into the apex of turn 2 on pretty much the correct racing line. And as they came through turn 3, he managed to get past Vettel on the outside of the corner. At this point, Vettel had already damaged his front wing on the rear tyre of Verstappen, and as they came through turn 3, he got on the power a little bit too early, the rear of the car slid, and he slid into the rear tyre of Hamilton. This further damaged Vettel's front wing and punctured Hamilton's rear right tyre, while Verstappen went on to win the race. How could we forget when Vettel ran into the back of Hamilton at Baku twice? All the drivers were under safety car conditions and were just about to restart. Granted, Hamilton did slow the pack down quite a lot. I think he wanted to slow everyone down, let the safety car go so that he could launch and go and get a good start along that extremely long Baku straight. But as he lifted off, I think Vettel just focused on something else and didn't quite expect Hamilton to go that slowly and drove into the back. After this, Vettel saw the red mist, drove alongside Hamilton and then proceeded to drive across and bang wheels with Hamilton. Now you would expect a driver of such high caliber not to have the red mist and not to get angry in such a way, but he did. And a lot of people say that the 10-second stop and go penalty that he received for this incident was nowhere near enough. In second position, we have the overtake by Verstappen on Raikkonen at the US Grand Prix. Now this was a really tricky one. For me, as a professional driver, you drive over the white lines with all 4 tyres, and that means you are off the track. So if you go up the inside of somebody when you're off the track, it's exactly the same as driving straight across a chicane without going on the circuit. It was an illegal move. I think the issue that a lot of people had with it was that the FIA or the stewards were not consistent with how they were giving out penalties. Earlier in the race, other people had cut the course slightly. People were running wide to maintain their position. I think Bottas did that once or twice. And it just wasn't consistent for each driver. So as racing drivers who push the boundaries, who push the rules as much as they can, how do you know how far you can push it? And it's something that I believe the FIA really need to tighten up on to make things all fair and square for every driver on the grid. I'm going to analyse this video along with all the others in the next few days. However, I'm going to do a special video on track limits and how I think the FIA and Formula 1 and motorsport in general can approach this subject to make sure that the drivers know exactly what they can and they can't do and how to control them, so there's no cheating and there's no difference in how penalties get given for various different drivers. And finally, in first position, it's the first turn incident at Singapore between Vettel, Verstappen and Kimi Raikkonen. Vettel got a good start, Verstappen got a very good start, and Raikkonen got an absolutely incredible start, which means only a few hundred meters off the line, they were all alongside each other. Now, when you look at the onboard, Verstappen kept his steering wheel pretty much straight, Raikkonen was on the outside of the track parallel with the white line, and Vettel comes across very aggressively to protect his position against Verstappen. Now what he didn't know was that Raikkonen was on the inside, and he wouldn't have expected that Raikkonen made such a good start. However, he did, and when 3 cars tried to go into the area that's only been designed for 2 cars, they all come together and have a crash. Now it's such a shame that this happened. It was a big pivotal moment for the championship. Vettel lost a lot of his momentum, but also for that race in particular, it was looking like it was going to be an incredible race. Alonso was up there too, and he got took out at the first turn as well. So it was such a shame. I was so disappointed when this happened. So they're my top 10 most memorable moments of the 2017 season. Let's hope for more next year. As I've already mentioned, I'm going to analyse in detail all of these videos over the next week or so. So please subscribe if you want to see more. If you like this video, please hit that like button below, and please let me know what your top moments of the 2017 F1 season were. Thank you and goodbye.